Hey everybody, welcome to the Conscious Love Show. Whether you are single, you are in a relationship, or you're healing a broken heart, this show is here to inspire you, to remind you how beautiful, lovable, and amazing you truly are, and to give you the practical tools and insights to navigate from wherever you are right now to the loving relationship that you so deeply want to have. My name is Shane Kohler. I'm a certified transformational coach and trainer with over a decade experience helping people release their trauma and open their hearts to love. I've delivered seminars all over the world, coached thousands of people through my online platforms and programs, and every week I'm coming straight to you with the hottest insights and the best teachers around, bringing you powerful resources and profound conversations to heal your relationship with love, dating, and yourself. I'm so grateful you're here, and if it's your first time, welcome. You can count on me to always show up for you with my very best and a commitment to learn and grow myself so I can serve you to my maximum ability. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I've got some awesome things planned for you today. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Hello again, everyone. Hello. Welcome back to the Conscious Love Show podcast. Shane Kohler on with you today. As always, pleasure to be here. I'm happy to be back this week and look forward to diving in. Today's episode, men only want sex at first. And here's what makes him want more. This is a big topic, and I've actually been sitting here kind of restarting this episode a few times because I want to address it delicately. And I don't want to offend anybody or trigger anybody unnecessarily. But I want to talk about some complex dynamics that are inherently uncomfortable. I want to talk about some toxicity that's in the field right now that is masquerading as moral superiority. And that's something we're going to address today. I want to talk about the nature of desire and how men and women experience desire differently. Their relational needs are different. Their intentions behind what they want when they enter a connection is often different. And those differences get categorized as, say, a woman is entering a connection and she wants a relationship, a commitment. And a man is entering a connection and he's interested in sex. Culturally, we tend to categorize the desire for commitment as morally superior to the desire for sex. And I think there's something toxic in that. Because what we're saying there is that people are not allowed to want what they want. We're saying that wanting certain things is bad and wanting other things is good. And I want to state up front in this episode that it is okay for a human being to want the things they want. If that's sex, if that's commitment, if they're a man, if they're a woman, it's okay for a human being to want the things that they want. What's not okay, and I want to say this early on in the episode before the comment section goes crazy on me, what's not okay is lying, manipulation, coercion, pressure. But this is what's really interesting. If a man were to lie, manipulate, coerce, or pressure for sex, that's obviously wrong. And we as a society agree that that is obviously wrong. But if a woman is to lie, coerce, pressure, or manipulate for commitment, that's not seen as wrong. That's seen as, well, her intentions were pure, she wanted love, and therefore it's okay. And I'm going to call that out. I'm going to call bullshit. I'm going to say it's okay for people to want what they want. If they want commitment, if they want love, if they want companionship, that's valid. If they want sex, that's valid. What's not okay and not appropriate is lying, coercion, manipulation, and pressure. And whether you're applying that to sex or whether you're applying that to commitment, it's not wrong. It is wrong. It's not okay. That's a violation. And what's underlying that is the idea that commitment is a superior desire to sex. And I don't think that's true. And I think we need to examine what we believe sex is culturally, because I mean, sex is like something that is wired into every human being as a biological need. For us to say there's something wrong with wanting that is absurd. And I know there's a huge religious context behind this, and there's a huge, social, puritanical, moral assumption about sex is dirty, sex is wrong, sex is evil. But that's all toxic too. To say that a core aspect of being human is wrong or dirty, that's just not okay. That there's so much shame and like damage that's done when we treat sexuality that way. Sex is normal, sex is human. And I want to acknowledge that sex is one of those places that gets particularly messy because it's so emotionally volatile. There's so much that we bring to it around identity, around our worthiness, around what it means, or like we bring so much meaning to it, and it becomes very emotionally volatile. And I want to acknowledge that that's a reality, and I'm not minimizing that. But when we talk about conscious relating, and this is the Conscious Love Show, when we talk about conscious relating, we need to be mature enough to understand the landscape that we're operating in and empower ourselves within that landscape. Now, I want to say this too. Would it be a better world if we collectively held sex as a sacred thing? And we had collective agreements that sex should only happen within very specific, explicitly consented arrangements, and there were agreements for follow-up and aftercare, and like if all of this was in place, would that be a better world? Yes, it would. I'm not going to argue that. But I'm also going to contrast that with, while that would be an ideal world, that's not the world we live in. And if you want those conditions in your sex life, it's up to you to create those conditions before you choose to have sex with someone, because that's not the way the culture at large operates. And expecting a cultural dynamic that operates in a certain way to automatically adhere to your personal standards is a little bit unreasonable and a little bit insane to expect that. So going back to what I said earlier, it's okay for you to want what you want. If you say, I only enter into sexual relations under specific conditions where the consent has been explicitly stated in a certain way, where there are certain agreements for how we're going to be with each other afterwards, where there are certain intentions expressed about the meaning of this interaction and what the relationship is, if that's what you desire, it is totally appropriate, and I would say even healthy, to desire that. And the responsibility to create that falls on you to create that. You can't expect some person you met on a dating app to automatically uphold that standard for you. That's insane. So I want to paint the picture here and go into a common dynamic of how this usually plays out. And let me start with the title of the episode, which is that men only want sex at first. Now, is this a universal truth about all men? Not necessarily. There are some men out there who have done some work and they've been through some ups and downs and they've slept around and found how empty it felt and decided they wanted more. That's awesome, right? That's awesome when a man comes to that conclusion. But I don't want to work with the edge cases here. I want to talk about the pervasive patterns that most people are experiencing in the real world when they're dealing with these things. And so at large, the thing that draws a man to a woman is sexual desire. Full stop. A man is generally not drawn to a woman saying, oh, I'd really like to marry her. Oh, I'd really like to have a family with her. Oh, I'd really like to build a life with her. On some background level, he may think to himself, you know, if I met the right person one day, I'd like to settle down. I'd like to have a family. I'd like to have a partner. Like those desires may live in him to some extent. But in the moment he meets a woman, he's not saying, I want to fall in love with her and bring her home to my parents and build a family with her. What he's saying is, she's hot. I'm attracted to her. I want to hook up with her. That's the drive that draws him toward her. And this is backed by billions of years of evolution. I mean, this is literally the core drive that keeps the human race in existence. I mean, there's this whole conversation out there right now that men should outgrow this or men should evolve beyond this. And I'm like, you can't expect any human to evolve beyond billions of years of evolution. Like, that doesn't mean that a desire for commitment can't emerge. It doesn't mean, like I said, that it doesn't live in him to some degree, but that's not what's driving him in the moment. And so when a man meets a woman, generally, and this might trigger some ladies, and I want to say, if you're triggered by this, I get it and I hear you, but try to stay with me, because there's a happy ending to this story if you stay with me through it, okay? So if you get triggered, I get it, but try to stay with me. He's drawn to a woman and he frames it like this. She's hot. I'm attracted to her. I want to hook up with her. And if something else happened beyond that, I'm open to it. I'd be willing to see what else could emerge. But in his frame, if he sleeps with her, the relationship has already become successful. If something more happens, if they fall in love and build a life together and have all their dreams come true with each other, that's a bonus. And I genuinely don't think that most men are opposed to that happening. I genuinely don't. I think most men enter a connection saying, I want to hook up with her. And hey, if I fall in love and we build a life together, that would be awesome too. But even if all we do is have sex, the relationship was still a success. I want all the women to hear me when I paint this, because this is how men enter a connection. And I want to say it's not wrong. Like, a lot of women hear that and they go, oh, well, that's wrong. He's an animal. He should evolve beyond that. No, he's just a human being with billions of years of evolution programming him to operate this way. And honestly, if this wasn't the case, he would probably never approach a woman to begin with. Like, this is the thing that drives him to connect with women. Without this, the human race would die out because men would not be driven towards women. Now, what generally happens, and let me name the other side of it too, because this is where we've got to cut through the moral superiority around it. So when a woman enters that same connection, her frame is almost the opposite of what a man's is. To her, the relational connection is the win. That is what means it's a successful connection, right? So for her, if he chooses her, if he commits to her, that's what equals a successful connection. And if sex happens in accordance with that, well, that's a bonus. So these are equal and opposite frames. He enters saying, if sex happens between us, that's a successful connection. And if something more emerges out of that, that's a bonus. She enters saying, if a commitment, if he chooses me, if we end up together, that's a successful connection. And if sex happens along those same lines, that's a bonus, right? So these are equal and opposite frames. And I want to say they're both appropriate. And I also want to name this because to the whole point about men should have evolved beyond this and we're not animals anymore. And like, I want to say that a woman's desire is not that different. Because billions of years of evolution have wired her to seek safety in connection. Right? A lone cave woman out on the prairie with nobody to protect her would be vulnerable to other predatory men out there. They would be vulnerable to wild animals. So without that masculine protector, a vulnerable cave woman out on the prairie was surely dead. And so the connection that she's seeking, that she often frames as morally superior, is not any different than the connection that he's seeking. It's different in shape and texture, but it's driven by the same biological drive. So the woman, biologically, evolutionarily speaking, is driven to seek safety and security in a masculine protector who can provide for her and her children. That's the feminine orientation to relationship, based on billions of years of biology, billions of years of evolution. The masculine drive is to spread his seed, based on billions of years of evolution. And when these two meet with two equal and opposite drives, that can be chaotic. And I want to state the real lived reality for everybody out there doing this right now, men and women both, is it is fucking chaotic. And it can be a nightmare. And so what often happens is these two meet. Maybe they meet on a dating app. Maybe they meet at the gym. Maybe they meet at the bar. They have equal and opposite motivations. They start connecting. She's wanting one thing. He's wanting another thing. They don't clearly communicate about what they want. They both subtly avoid the topics that they think might sabotage the connection. So if he comes out and says, I only want sex, nothing else, that might sabotage the connection. If she comes out and says, I want a commitment, that might sabotage the connection. So they both just kind of avoid saying what they actually want. They go on vibes, they go on feelings, they go on hope. And I want to say this because men don't usually lie about their intentions. Men stay intentionally vague about them. And so men will say something like, I just want to see what happens. I like you. I enjoy the connection. I want to spend time with you. I just want to see where things go. And yes, I want to say some men use that as a line, but more often than not, it's just the truth of his experience. When he says that, what he's saying is, I like being around you. I want to spend time with you. I want to get to know you. And if whatever emerges from that, I'm open to it. If that's a sexual relationship, if that's more than a sexual relationship, I'm open to it. What he does is he tries to say something that will preserve the connection without overcommitting to something he's not ready for. And I can't say that that's wrong. Like, I really can't. Like, there's no reason that he should be ready to commit to someone that he just barely met. So saying that I'm open to seeing where this goes. I like you. I like spending time with you. I want to get to know you. I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying that. I don't think that's dishonest. I don't think that's misleading. I think that's true for where he is. But the problem is that they both operate in nebulous, unclear structure. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. They both operate like without clearly stating what they want. And then ultimately what often happens is after spending some time together, they end up sleeping together. When he sleeps with her, the charge that was driving him toward her gets neutralized. And this is so important for women to understand, and this is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about what women can realistically do with that, because it's a complex situation for her to be in, and I want to acknowledge that. But so let's say they've been dating for 3 weeks. They've been talking, they've been texting, they've been going out on dates. Maybe they're seeing each other once, twice a week. They're having phone calls in between. And in him, a charge is building. That sexual charge, that drive to want to hook up with her, that's building and building and building and building and building. And it's pulling him more and more toward her. Meanwhile, she may be interpreting, as that charge builds in him, that he wants more than a relationship. Or excuse me, that he wants more than sex, that he wants a relationship. And that's not necessarily true. What's true is that a charge is building inside of him. When they sleep together, what often happens is that charge gets neutralized. And this is how the masculine frame operates. It's very goal-oriented. So he's working towards a goal. The goal is achieved. The charge around that goal is neutralized. And then he moves on to the next goal. And I know that sounds very barbaric the way I just described it. And honestly, human beings are a little barbaric sometimes. Now, I'm not saying that more than that can evolve. It often does. I've been with my wife going on 10 years now. Right? So more than that often does evolve. There are lots of happy couples out there and wonderful relationships that have gotten beyond this initial phase. But I'm naming a common dynamic. And then what happens for him is the charge gets neutralized. All of a sudden, he doesn't feel what he felt before. He may not really even understand why he doesn't feel the way he felt before. He might feel guilty about it. He might feel shame about it. He might feel confused about it. Now he might feel pressure like, oh shit, I got myself into a position. I thought I wanted this, but I don't want it anymore. But she still wants it. Now she's more attached than ever. What do I do? And he withdraws. Now, I'm not saying that's okay or right. And I want to be clear about that. But what it is it's unconsciousness, anxiety, and fear taking over his system. And he avoids because he doesn't really know what else to do. Now, a really healthy, emotionally mature man would probably be honest about it. He'd say, listen, I was feeling something. My feelings have changed. I don't know if I want that anymore. Like, he might. But what I want to name here, and this is, I find that this is a tough thing for a lot of women to understand, and I want to be gentle in the way I describe it. But when a dynamic plays out like this, she often feels that she was lied to, she was coerced, she was manipulated, she was led on, she was used for sex. And ladies, I get why it feels that way, and you're not wrong to feel that way about it. But I want to say honestly that in his experience, that's not what was happening. It wasn't a master plan to manipulate you, get in your pants, and then disappear. It was more like two human beings operating on instinct, operating on unacknowledged needs, not being fully self-aware. They got themselves into a situation that billions of years of evolution has been driving them towards. Then it got awkward, then it got uncomfortable, and it collapsed. That's tragic, that's heartbreaking, that's disappointing, but it's not evil. And the reason this is important, and I want to be clear, I'm not justifying any kind of toxic male behavior here, but what I'm trying to do is paint the landscape clearly, especially for the women who are most vulnerable in this situation, so that you can understand the landscape that you're operating in and you can empower yourself inside of it, because you're not powerless here. And that's the most important thing to name today. Women are not powerless in this situation. Now, I want to talk about the complex position that women are in here, because it's very complex. And I want to say it's not fair, by the way. It's not fair. But it's real, and until, maybe another billion years of evolution goes by and humanity is operating on a completely different level, this is the reality of where we are right now. And so women, I want to acknowledge you are in a complex position. And what I want to do in today's episode is tell you how to navigate that position in a powerful way. So when you meet a man, as I've already said, he's coming at you with a lot of sexual energy. His primary frame for the connection with you is, let's sleep together, and whatever else happens, wonderful. He's not intentionally manipulating you to get in your pants. He's just operating on his core evolutionary instinct, which is to say, I want to have sex with her. And if more happens, great. If we fall in love, if we get married, if we have a family, that's awesome. But I want to have sex with her. Now, a woman is in a really difficult position here because she likes him. She wants to make him happy. She doesn't want to withhold sex from him or manipulate him. She also probably wants to have sex with him if she's attracted and turned on by him. She wants to give him what he wants. She doesn't want him to think that she's withholding or anything like that. So there are a lot of really valid reasons why she would want to just go along with it. And the problem is what I already stated earlier, is that a lot of times when she just goes along with it, it neutralizes the charge that is driving him toward her. And this is an extremely complex position for a woman to be in. And it requires an incredible amount of relational skill. And I don't think anybody's ever taught women how to navigate this, really. You have the prudish grandma who's like, don't give it up too fast. And then you have hookup culture that says, just do what feels good. And, the truth is probably somewhere in between those two. And it's hard. And I also want to say there's no guarantee. You can do everything right, and sometimes the other person still loses interest. That is the risk of being in relationship with someone. But hell, I've been with my wife for almost 10 years. She could come to me tomorrow and say she doesn't want to be with me anymore. That's always the risk, right? There's always a risk that somebody loses interest and wants something else. That's always a risk. And it's not wrong. That's just what happens sometimes. But it's really difficult for women to navigate this because you don't want to withhold. And at the same time, you don't want to kill the charge. So what do you do? Well, I want to talk about the perfect balance of power that actually keeps these connections in integrity. And this is something nobody likes to talk about, but it's ancient wisdom if I've ever heard it. Women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of commitment. This creates a perfect balance of power in the relationship. They both have equal power. They both hold what the other person wants. And it's very easy to collapse this into toxic, manipulative games. And I know nobody really wants to do that. None of us want to be toxic and manipulative, but that's when we fear vulnerability, that's what we default to. So women manipulate men's sexual desire and men manipulate women's desire for commitment. But when we're willing to be honest and authentic and vulnerable with someone else, we don't have to be toxic and manipulative about it. We can just be real about it. So there's a perfect balance of power. The woman holds what the man wants. The man holds what the woman wants. And when neither person abandons their power, what happens is we enter into a dynamic where there's a little give and take. And it's this give and take between two people that, without either person giving it all away too quickly, that creates an emotional bond between them. And ladies, I know this is not fair. I know it's a difficult position for you to be in, and it's unfair, but really it's up to you to manage that give and take. And the reason for that, the reason it falls on the woman, and I know it's not fair, but it's just the reality. The reason it falls on the woman is because sex can happen much faster than commitment does. And so the woman is in the position of having to manage the energy. And again, I don't want to say there's a guarantee, but there are ways in which women manage this energy that leads to higher likelihoods of commitment. And there are ways that women manage this energy that leads to less likelihood of commitment. So men, as I said earlier, when a man sleeps with a woman too soon, and I don't even want to make it about time. It's not like if you do it 3 weeks, it's too soon, but if you do it after 3 months, that's okay. It's not about time. It's about where the relationship is. Like, my wife and I slept together for the first time after about 3 weeks. And we talked every single day for those 3 weeks. I called her every single night. We were having deep, world-building conversations with each other. We talked about commitment. We talked about a lot, right? So it's not that she made me wait an extremely long amount of time. But what she did was she held a context that required me to build a relationship with her, so that when that desire was satisfied, there was something that was still there in place. The reason men lose interest after sex sometimes isn't because he only wants sex, and this is the stereotype that gets put onto men. They're only interested in sex. No, they're not only interested in sex. They're primarily interested in sex out of the gate. And they're open to more when a relationship calls them into more. And so what my wife did with me, and I'm not going to say she did all of it. Like, I was doing it too. I was calling her every single night. I don't think she called me once. I called her every night for 3 weeks. We talked every single night. But what we were doing was we were building a world together. And so when we slept together, and it was only 3 weeks in, but when we slept together, sex was an expression that was happening inside of the world that we were building together, rather than the satisfaction of a drive that then collapsed afterwards. So men remain engaged in relationships that have purpose, that have invitation, that have challenge, that have growth. That's a relationship that they have to rise into. And what makes him want more is not manipulation or withholding or game playing, but it's clear standards, clear boundaries, self-respect. When a woman is choosing him instead of trying to earn being chosen by him, that's maybe the biggest one. I'm going to say this. One of the things that is certain to kill the charge, so as I've spoken about how sex can often kill the charge between a man and a woman, one of the things that is certain to kill the charge is when the woman offers sex in the hope of being chosen in return for it. I think this is a big mistake a lot of women make. They think that if I give him what he wants, he will choose me in return. That doesn't work. Men don't bond that way. Women bond through sex. They do. Evolutionarily speaking, when a woman would have sex with a man, she is designed to bond with him because he then becomes the protector of the child they might have. Men are not designed to bond the same way. Men bond through investment. So the way it works for a man, and this is, I use the example of myself and my wife because I called her every night for 3 weeks. We spent hours on the phone. What was happening was I was investing into the relationship. I was investing time, energy, attention, conversation, getting to know her, learning about her, sharing myself with her, her learning about me. And I wasn't bonding to her through sex. I was bonding to her, as I said, through the world that we were building together. I was investing time and energy and attention into this human being. And, you know, this may be a foundational difference between men and women, although I think women, actually, this happens for them too. But a lot of women think that if I am the perfect woman, he'll want to bond with me. And men actually don't bond with you because of who you are entirely. That's part of it. Like, you've got to be a good person, right? But men bond with you because of how much they invest in you. What he invests in a woman increases her value in his mind. So when he has to show up, when he has to call you, when he has to prioritize you, when he has to spend time with you, when he has to plan things for you and take you out, and when he's investing this energy into you, every time he invests something in you, it increases your value in his mind. This is what makes him see you as a high-value woman. And look, there are a lot of high value women out there, like truly high value women, smart, intelligent, capable, successful. They got all the tickets. Really, truly high value woman. And when she gets into a relationship with a man, or when she gets into an intimate connection with a man, she collapses into her historical wounds. She starts behaving more like a little girl than a high-value woman. She starts trying to be chosen by him rather than operating as the chooser of him. This collapses the polarity. It reduces the only drive in the relationship to sex, and once that drive is satisfied, he's out. And so I want to say this, and again, this might be something that pisses people off, and I get why it would piss you off, but we've got to deal with reality. We can't live in a fantasy world of how we wish things were. A man perceiving a woman as high value has little to do with how high value she actually is, and a lot to do with how much he invests in her. And let me say this, there are a lot of high value women, truly high value women, who don't require men to invest that much in them. And there are a lot of lower value women in terms of their integrity, in terms of their personality, in terms of their intelligence, who are really good at getting men to invest in them. And that's not fair, but that's reality. So I want to talk more specifically about what makes him want more. And I want to break some myths, because it's so hard to talk about these things because I say something like what I just said. And I see these videos on social media where women are going, if a man wants to take me out for a coffee date, he's a low value man. He needs to spend at least $200 on dinner. And I get where that philosophy comes from, because it's taking what I just said and misunderstanding it. But that's missing the point a little bit. It's not that he has to take you out to an expensive dinner. It's not that he has to take you on a vacation. It's not about the monetary value. Like, let me put it this way. There are a lot of wealthy men who will take a woman out to a $200 dinner every night of the week, and it means nothing to them. $200 is nothing. So sometimes monetary investment equates actual investment. But most of the time, it doesn't. And the women who say he has to take me out to a $200 dinner, they're kind of missing the point, because it's almost like if you can just be bought, and if a man knows that he can buy you, then that kind of makes you low value also. It's actually, for you to say, I don't want to go out to a fancy dinner on a first date. I want you to take me out for a cup of coffee. And I want you to pay for my cup of coffee. Right? Because anybody should be able to pay $5 for a cup of coffee. If he can't pay $5 for a cup of coffee, you should not entertain him. And if he doesn't want to pay $5 for a cup of coffee, you should not entertain him. I'm just going to be straight up about that. If a man takes you out on a coffee date and he doesn't want to pay for your coffee, that's a red flag. But at the same time, you're saying, I don't need you to take me out to a $200 dinner. I don't need you to shower me with gifts and lots of money. What I need is for you to show up. I need for you to want to pay for something, because that shows that you want to provide something. It's not about the amount of money you pay. It's about the fact that you want to pay it. And then we need to sit down in the coffee shop and you need to show up with presence, interest, emotional availability. You need to act like you actually care about getting to know me. You need to be able to carry a conversation. You need to be able to offer more than a one-word response. That's the kind of presence, like you requiring that of him actually shapes a man's perception of you in a really, really powerful way. Because you're saying, you can't buy me with expensive dinners or gifts. You need to show up. You need to want to provide something. If you can't even pay for my cup of coffee, like, I don't think we have a future together. But more than just taking me out to an expensive dinner and paying for something, you need to show up with presence. You need to show up with real, genuine interest. You need to be able to carry a conversation. You need to have some depth. You need to have some relational intelligence. Now, that's just a first date. But that sets the tone. If you go out on a first date with a man for coffee and he doesn't want to pay for your coffee and he can't carry a conversation and he doesn't show real genuine interest in you and he gives you one-word responses, you're self-selecting out of that relationship. You're operating as the chooser. So, like, ladies, I want you to understand this. You need to treat it like men are auditioning for you. And that's not manipulative. That's restoring a balance of power. So many women operate like they are auditioning for a man's approval. That is an inversion of polarity. So, let's say you go out on the coffee date. Maybe the next date he takes you out for a nice dinner. Maybe he plans something romantic, a walk along the water afterwards or whatever, but you're sitting back and you're observing how much is he investing in the relationship. And remember, in the beginning, sex is driving him. Now, I want to be clear about this. He's not thinking if I pay for her coffee, I'm going to get sex. If I carry a conversation, I'm going to get sex. If I do X, Y, Z equals sex. He's not thinking about it transactionally like that. This is instinctual. He feels a sexual charge in his body. That sexual charge is moving him towards you. He's doing what he needs to do to be in proximity to you. And he's hoping that if he maintains proximity, he'll get to sleep with you. But every time he invests time, energy, attentiveness, emotional availability, every time he invests himself in you, he's starting to see you as more than an outlet for his sexual desire. Now, what's going to happen is maybe after the third or the fourth date, he's back at your house. You're on the couch, you're watching a movie, you're making out, something like that. And he's going to try to take it to sex. He's going to try to take it all the way. This is where it's important for you to stop him. And again, I'm not saying that you need to withhold sex for 6 months or 6 years, right? Like I said, my wife and I withheld it or she withheld it. I don't even like the word withholding. But she had a boundary, and that boundary lasted for 3 weeks. It lasted long enough for her to see me invest enough in the relationship that she felt safe. That's the line. It's not about time. It's about waiting long enough for you to see him invest enough that you feel safe crossing that boundary with him. For my wife, that was 3 weeks. For someone else, it might be 3 months. It's not about time, though. That's important. But, and let me say this, and some of you might hate me for this, but it was just my reality. I can't be anyone other than who I am. I was used to sleeping with women basically on the first time we hung out. Not because I needed to, not because I was an asshole who, if she doesn't hook up with me on the first night, I'll never talk to her again. Just because that's generally how it went for me. We would meet, we would hang out, we would spend time, we would have a good time together, we would go back to one of our places and we would hook up. And my wife was one of the first women who ever created that boundary with me. So it was very similar. My wife and I, we met, we connected, we hung out, we ended up back at my place. We started kissing. And she said, "No, I'm not going to sleep with you tonight." And she held that boundary. And I actually thought, this is amazing. And this is something really interesting that it's a paradox, but I actually felt relieved. Because on some level, I felt like pressure to perform in that sense. I felt like I need to be ready to have sex. It needs to be good. I need to make sure it's good for her. I need to please her. I felt all this pressure. And when she said she wasn't going to go there, I felt relief, like, oh my God, I can just get to know this person. And I don't have to worry about impressing her or worry about, like, it actually felt relief, which there's a paradox here because men are biologically wired for sex. Men are societally and socially conditioned to believe that having sex proves their value as a man. And so I don't think that men necessarily want to have sex immediately all the time. I think they're wired to believe that they have to. And what my wife did when she created that boundary was she taught me it's safe to just get to know someone without the pressure of that. And that felt like relief to my nervous system. That had me bond to her on a different level. So what I'm getting at here with the ladies is whether it's the first date or the third date, I think you should always say no when he first tries to initiate sex with you. The first time. Maybe you say yes the second time or the third time. But you should always say no the first time. And the reason is because you're doing something really powerful. One, if he's anything like me, he'll feel relieved. And maybe he won't, but that's okay. He doesn't need to feel relieved. That's just how I felt. But what you're doing is you're saying very clearly, and not in a conceptual way, but in a literal, real way, this relationship is not about sex. And you say something like this. So let's say you're on your third date, you're back at your place, you're making out, you're having a good time. You start to go in that direction. And you stop and you say, listen, I really like you. I'm really enjoying this connection. I do want to eventually sleep together, but I'm not ready to go there yet. And I need you to work on building a relationship with me in such a way that I feel safe enough to go there with you. And so I want to give you the opportunity to do that. And if you're willing to make this relationship about more than sex and get to know me on a personal level, I'll let you know when I'm ready and we can go there. That is one of the most powerful things you can do. And he will understand on the most literal level possible that this relationship is not about sex. It's about something more. Now, I've coached a lot of women on this, and one of two things happens when she does this. The man disappears, which, ladies, is a good thing when it happens. So, like, going back to me and my wife, I could have disappeared when she said that. You know, we're back at my house, we're making out. I could have disappeared. But I didn't. Because her saying that drew me into the relationship. I was actually like, oh, this is great. Like, yeah, I can just get to know you without feeling like I need to perform sexually. Like, awesome. If I had been like, I'm only interested in sex. If you're not going to give it to me, then fuck it, I'm out. That would have been a win for my wife. And for any ladies that happens to, that's a win for you. You dodged a fucking bullet. And maybe 50% of the time, if a man is that shallow, if he's that emotionally unavailable, if he has no interest in a relationship other than sex, good. You got him out of your life before it became more emotionally complex, before you became more attached, before he had physical access to your body. Good. Now, the other 50% of the time, it's going to happen exactly the way it happened with me and my wife, where it draws him into the relationship. Maybe he feels relief, or he may not feel exactly what I felt, but maybe he just feels like, yeah, okay, I like you. I want to get to know you. Like, just because we're not having sex doesn't mean I'm not interested in the relationship at all. And then what starts to happen is you have subtly framed the whole connection between you, that now he's not just showing up to have sex with you, where maybe in the beginning he was. By creating that boundary, you have shifted his complete drive toward the relationship. You have stated, I need you to be here for me, not for sex. And if you can demonstrate that you're here for me and not for sex, I'll let you know when I'm ready, and the sex will be part of it. But you've actually shaped the whole relationship where you've said sex is going to be an extension of the connection we make, not the essence of the connection we make. That's critical. And now, if he doesn't disappear after that, and some men will, but if he doesn't disappear after that, every time he calls you, every time he takes you out, every effort he makes towards you is now reframed in his mind, and he's doing it not for sex, but for you. He's starting to see you as a woman that he actually wants to be with, not just someone he wants to hook up with. Again, this is how you maintain the balance of power, right? Like, he's the gatekeeper of commitment. You're the gatekeeper of sex. And I don't want this to sound transactional. I want it to sound like a mutual honoring. The more you truly feel that he is showing up and participating with you in a way that honors your needs, the more you're willing to reciprocate him by meeting his needs. But this shifts the context from, I'm just going to give you everything that you want and hope it's enough for you to choose me, to no, you choose me first. And when you choose me and when I feel chosen, I reward that. And I want to go back to something I said earlier, because I want to really name this point. This is a fucked up position for you to be in, ladies. It is. It's not fair. In a perfect world, it wouldn't be this way. But you need to understand the position that you are in. And you need to understand what your power is in that situation. And you need to claim your power. When you create that boundary with a man, if it does anything other than draw him deeper into the relationship, he's showing you that he was not available for the kind of relationship that you want to have. And I know it's scary to do this because that sucks, right? Like I get it. That sucks where you're vulnerable, you're honest with someone. You want them to choose the relationship in the same way you're choosing it. And they say, nope, if you're not going to have sex with me, I'm out. That sucks. And it's a fucked up position that you're in that you have to do that. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is you give more, you attach more, you get more enmeshed in the connection, only to later find out that he was never available for it. So, I want to just take these last few minutes here to sum up what I've talked about as coherently as possible. And I want to acknowledge some of what I've said today might be a little choppy, and I've done my best to be clear, but these are complex topics. And as I'm talking about it, I feel like I'm kind of walking over landmines here, because I know half of the listeners are going to hear this and flip out, call me a misogynist and call me whatever. But like, really, all I'm trying to do is show women how powerful they actually are and how to use their power with men. If that makes me a misogynist, I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you. The women I work with become more powerful than ever. I don't think that's misogynistic, but call it what you will. But so let's recap. Let's name a few things here. When a man enters a connection, his primary orientation is around sex. If I sleep with her, that's a success. If something more happens, wonderful. Women's primary orientation is the opposite. If this relationship becomes something more, that's a success. And if sex happens as a part of that, that's wonderful. Equal and opposite orientations. Neither one is morally superior. Neither one is objectively better or objectively worse. They're just different. In fact, I think it's really beautiful when we as human beings can honor both sides of it. Hey, men have a certain orientation. Women have a certain orientation. It's okay for both of those orientations to exist. And let's be mature, responsible, self-aware adults and communicate with each other and state our needs and state our boundaries and find a way to meet in the middle where everybody can win. So 2 equal and opposite orientations. These equal and opposite orientations create a completely coherent and equal power balance. Men are the gatekeepers of commitment. Women are the gatekeepers of sex. If a woman gives away her balance of power too quickly, too easily, again, I don't like the word quickly because that makes it about time, too easily, that kills the charge, that kills the polarity. But her holding her power balance increases the charge. It increases the polarity. It magnetizes him towards her. This is not transactional I'll trade sex for commitment. It's a mutual honoring of each other's power. It's a mutual honoring of each other's needs. So the woman says, I'm going to hold my power. And I'm going to ask that you show me your commitment. I'm going to ask that you make real investment in me. I'm going to ask that you make this relationship about more than sex. And if you do, you'll get all the sex you want. But only once you've proven yourself. Only once you've proven that you're safe. Only once you've proven that you're someone I can trust. This will repel half of the men, but it will draw the other half of them in. And once you frame that boundary, what starts to happen is he starts to build you up in his mind as someone of value. You were always someone of value. But what has him truly see that value is every investment that he makes into you and into the relationship. He bonds to you through the energy that he gives you over time. And your job is to receive that energy. Your job is to let him make that investment. And when you feel safe, when you feel that he has honored you, when you feel that he is consistent and available and showing up like the kind of man you need in your life, yes, you reward that commitment. You satisfy his most primal, basic needs. And then he feels like he's found a unicorn. A woman who can meet him on every level. A woman who gave him what he wanted, but gave him something more than that. Gave him something he didn't even know he wanted. She called him into a higher commitment, not just to her, but to himself. She required him to bring forth more of himself in relationship with her. And what he falls in love with is partially you and partially who he became because of you. That's how powerful women are. And I know this is a touchy subject because a lot of women hear that and they say, oh, so it's my job to make him a better man. No, it's not your job to make him a better man. It's your job to honor yourself, honor your needs, honor your boundaries, honor your desires. It just so happens that when you do that, sometimes men transform in your presence. So I'm going to end with that. I want to say, ladies, if you've made it this far in the episode, thank you for staying with me. I know a lot of what I've said today could be difficult to hear. I just want to say thank you for being with me in today's episode. I think this is important. I think it's something that, it's a sensitive topic, and that's probably why it needs to be talked about. People aren't really talking about it in this way. A lot of these conversations get reduced to manipulative power games. They get reduced to superficial things like buy me a $200 dinner. They get reduced to, men's instincts are predatory and basic. And I get why the conversation gets reduced in that way, because it's easier. It preserves moral authority. It makes us feel better about ourselves without having to really engage with the complexity of reality. But it also kills relationship. It kills our ability to genuinely connect with another person. And, I think we really need to operate from the perspective that nobody's desires are wrong. All desires are valid. But what we need to do is honor our needs, honor our desires. And in relationship with others, we call people into meeting us in the way that we need to be met. And yes, we meet the other person's needs too. But we do that within a context that is reciprocal, that is respectful, that is honoring. We don't allow people to just take from us in relationship. So thank you for being with me. Lots of love and blessings to you as always. I'll be back here next week. Take care. I'll see you then. Bye. Thanks again for checking out the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on the most. And I would love it so much if you leave a review and tell people what you think of us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @TheLivingRelationship to connect more closely. And I'm grateful to be supporting you on your journey to love.